Hey guys, welcome to Almonds and Coconuts, where we talk about slice of life topics focusing on traumatizing, embarrassing, and childhood stories from Indian kids living in America. I'm Arjun,
And I'm Shiny.
and it's just us today, but we're going to be talking about Indian media today.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to start with TV serials because I feel like India is kind of famous for that. You know, the
Yeah,
all the transitions and cringy dialogue delivery and all that.
yeah. Also, just for context, like here in America where we live, I believe they would be called soap operas. So it's kind of, in that ballpark.
Yeah, except in India, they take it to a next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's like always these cliches you could call it, which are very different in Indian series than like American shows. There's always the evil sister-in-law or the evil mother-in-law, and then there's the daughter-in-law who's always depressed for some reason, who's always crying, and then the husband that's like super manipulative and stuff, but somehow the wife never leaves him because it's normalized.
Yeah, I feel like there's always those same characters, which is there's always a relationship between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. And I feel like it's usually centered around the marriage. So, it's the weird thing is they're very similar. Every single serial that you see is very similar in that they have the same characters and the setting, but somehow the stories end up being super different. And, the
Yeah.
main theme of it is really different. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, the plot lines are like crazy. There's sometimes they have ghosts in there. I don't know how, like it could turn out to be it starts off as, a pretty normal serial, and then by like the second season, the daughter-in-law is possessed with a demon or something like that. It's just really crazy. They just never make sense. I wonder whether the director actually knows what they're doing or not, because I don't even understand what's going on half of the time. And neither does my mom, who's like mainly watches it.
Yeah, that's true. And also with the editing, I feel like the editing is always very interesting because first of all, in the acting itself, they show a lot of emotion, but also, with the editing, there's they have a lot of different effects. And the weird thing is usually it's the same effects used in the same circumstances. Like for example, if someone, drops something, they always have to show everyone else's reaction. Though it's the same reaction, they always they have this weird zoom in, and sometimes they have to, replay the same clip multiple times to add tension or something.
Yeah,
And also, there's some effects where they add like flashing sequences and stuff like that. It's all the same, but you know those are kind of the constants that you can be expecting in YouTube or Indian serials.
my friend and I, we were joking once that it's like they had like a free trial with, those editing apps, and they tried to make use of all the transitions because they didn't want to waste the free trial. So they add like 15 different transitions for something as small as dropping a cup of tea. And it's just so hilarious because one scene can drag on for like 20 minutes, where in an American show or something, it would be, done in 2 minutes. But I feel like Indian serials, they feel the need to drag it out as much as possible. So, like, by the time, like you watch the serial for a month and the only progress you've gotten is, I don't know, the main character, Deepa, she accidentally dropped a teacup and now she's crying for the seventh time that day, which is like there's no progress or plot that's actually going on in the TV serials.
Yeah, it's very dramatic, and I feel like although it is very slow because they drag out every single moment, especially with all the transitions and the zooming in and stuff. It's kind of entertaining, which I guess is why. And and also, can we just mention there's this specific TV show or serial that obviously there's a lot out there, but this specific one, um it has been going on for 3 years, and there's more than 1,000 episodes in it, I think. But at this point, like as of right now, as of recording 2021, it's about halfway through, I think. And so apparently they said that it's only halfway through, another 3 years and another 1,000 episodes before the show actually ends. And the weird thing is, the main plot of the show has already been finished. So I don't know how they're going to add on to it, or if it's going to become worse in the future, or if they're going to introduce a new plot, because in the 1,000 episodes that they already made, because Indian serials, they release every single day. So there's a new maybe 20-ish minute episode every single day. And so it's kind of weird how long they can drag it out.
For real. Like by the time I graduate college and have my own job, the characters in the serial are just gonna finish solving this small, minuscule like task. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah,
so small. So if they drag it on for so long that people watching the serial in real life, their life is going
is
faster
moving
and
on.
progressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's moving on faster than the actual serial, which is it's kind of crazy. Like it's so stupid.
Yeah, and
But
also one of the big features I would say in serials is the slapping. This usually occurs, but I feel like I feel like we're doing a huge like analysis on it. But it usually occurs between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and it's like, there's this one scene where the mother-in-law told the daughter-in-law to boil some milk or something for tea or whatever, and then apparently it kind of like the milk overflowed the cup, and then the mother-in-law comes in and dramatically, obviously, with all the transitions, she slaps the daughter-in-law because the milk was overflowing. And she said, "Oh, now all the milk is wasted." And the weird thing is, it's like, I feel like there has to be multiple things whenever someone slaps. First of all, the actual slap, the sound effect has to be there. And then second of all, usually like the person who got slapped puts their hand on their cheek, which I think is pretty normal. But then after that, their cheek is suddenly completely red and they're bleeding from their forehead and their arm is falling off. Somehow it's so dramatic. They get slapped on their right cheek and then their entire body is falling apart. And somehow
yeah.
it's like, I don't get how what does a small slap on the cheek have to do with you bleeding, from your arm? It makes no sense.
Mhm.
And also I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of times in serials when someone gets slapped, there's some like singing. If you think of it like, those
Like a
angels
choir.
singing from heavens, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a choir in the background, but it's kind of like a sad singing instead of, the angels from heaven typical movie singing. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of stuff. Like the slap itself is an entire scene.
Right. Like it's kind of funny to see the stark contrast between Hollywood and Indian serials because in Hollywood, if someone gets shot, it's just like a 2 second thing, they fall down. But in Indian serials, if someone was to get shot, they're going to twist, do a ballerina routine for like 10 minutes, and then they're going to somehow go to the end up in the other side of the room and then smash their head against the wall, and now not only do they get shot, they have a concussion, they need to amputate their leg, and they have they lost all their memory and somehow they end up surviving, but it drags on for like 20 minutes and you just see them bleeding and like crying or whatever for that entire period. It's just kind of funny
Yeah.
to
And then
compare
there's
those two.
also sometimes like a butterfly effect where it's like, they'll hit their head against the cupboard and then suddenly everything in the cupboard falls out and then it hits someone else. And
Yeah.
then there's like a line of people standing next to each other. So there's like domino effect and everyone just like falls down. And soon like the entire house is on fire for some reason. And then
Mm,
everyone just makes it out alive. And they're like, oh, what happened? You know?
yeah.
And also, I was gonna say that yeah, it's very dramatic and it extends a long way. I'm still kind of surprised at the fact that how long these serials go, and also the fact that they're released every single day. Like when do these actors have time to film and edit, or like the editors have time to edit, and then the actors also have their own real lives to live. So yeah.
Yeah. Also, not only about TV serials, but Indian movies in general, they follow the same formulaic concept. So
Yeah.
every movie, you kind of know what's going to happen because they have fight scene and then a lot of randomly placed songs where they somehow forget the plot and then end up in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Himalayas, doing a dance routine. And then there's a fight scene, of course, and then a crying scene, and then an emotional one. It's just
Yeah,
the
there's I feel
same
like
thing.
they have, I feel like there's a template where they're like, okay, emotional scene, check.
Yeah.
Action scene, check. Hospital scene, check. And I feel like it always goes something like there's a guy who loves a girl, but then the girl isn't impressed, or the girl's parents don't approve of the guy. And so suddenly this boy is like, he's fighting and like he's trying to prove himself, and then there's bad guys who enter the equation, and then at the end they end up loving each other or something, I don't know. And
Yeah.
then also I feel like back to serials, I feel like, or even in regular movies, there's always some sort of bad omen, where it's like if something happened, there has to be a specific thing happening, and then that triggers something completely different. Like if you think, well, I'm thinking of a different scene in another serial where basically they were kind of in the temple and praying, and basically they have this thing where there's a small fire, kind of like a, kind of like a specific type of prayer, and basically the fire went out, and it kind of just like burned out, and then everyone was super dramatic. Someone, like, in a different house, they were walking down the stairs, and then they started tumbling because that fire in the different place went out. They started tumbling down the stairs, and then it was so dramatic because it's like one thing can happen miles away, and then another thing is just triggered somehow, and it's very dramatic.
Yeah, again, it's like the butterfly effect that you were talking about. Something bad happens, and suddenly
Yeah.
World War IV has occurred. So many like random things that happen because of a small thing. It's just so dramatic. And
Yeah.
the fight scenes. That's what I just want to like talk to the person that directed the fight scenes and ask them what do they know what physics and gravity means, because those fight scenes where somehow the hero, the protagonist, he's somehow like 50 feet in the air and doing the
Mhm.
kung fu panda type of thing, and then kicks
Yeah,
the
it's
other
like,
dude.
yeah, and then, it kind of reminds me of those cartoons that we used to watch as little kids, where someone is like, they're in midair, and then they look at the camera, they go, "Uh-oh," and then they fall, and
Yeah.
so it makes no sense. And then somehow this hero, he's on an elephant, he jumps off the elephant like 50 feet into the air, and then he like dodges all the bullets, and then he just somehow like shoots everyone in a matter of seconds, which
Yeah.
makes no sense, not even just like with physics and gravity, but also with time, because it's like no human can physically go that fast.
Right? There was
you
this
know
one movie scene that I was watching, and this actually happened in the movie. Someone was shooting at the hero, and he caught the bullet with his mouth. He caught it with his teeth, and then he like spit it out or something. And I'm like, how does that even make sense? And I wish I
yeah.
was joking, but some person actually thought that would be like super cool and something and wrote it in the script.
Yeah. And also a big thing is, I think this doesn't really apply to serials, but it's more in like movies, especially like in Bollywood or Indian movies in general, is the songs, because there's always an entire soundtrack for a movie. It's kind of like, I feel like every movie is a musical, because here in America, if you think about it, a movie is different from a musical. A musical is where, there's parts of it are filmed as a movie, and then most of it is songs. But I feel like every quote unquote movie in India is basically a musical, because the music just comes at random times, and it's like they could be in the middle of a really big fight scene, and then suddenly there's a love song where it's like maybe the hero is like thinking about his wife or something, and then there's a love song suddenly where we see the hero and the heroine and like dancing together. And so it's so weird, or or they might be in the middle of a super intense thing, but then suddenly there's just a song with a bunch of backup dancers. And so it's like, I know it's supposed to be like that, but it just doesn't make sense, and it's like they forget everything around them.
Yeah, the fact that they just teleport to random scenic places, it makes really no sense. And there was this one movie where the hero and the heroine, they're supposed to be mad at each other, but somehow they decided to put a song in the middle of that, and they're happy in the song, like even though in like the actual plot they're supposed to be mad at each other, and singing and dancing or whatever. And then when the song ends, they resume back to the movie plot and they're mad at each other again. And it just makes no sense, realistically, and also from the plot. They kind of just move away from that just for the sake of having the song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like also the theme and the storylines kind of are all the same. There's a bad guy who has no depth or character. Like in American shows, there's a bad guy, yeah, sometimes, but they have emotion. It's not just, oh, they're bad. You know what I'm saying? They have
Yeah.
a dark past or something. They have more
Yeah,
depth and emotion.
I feel like in America, or just almost honestly pretty much anywhere in the world, they they actually develop the characters and they give them time. They actually, even for the villain and stuff, they have an entire backstory. And it's true that in India, a lot of times they do give a reason for the villain to have a backstory, but or to be evil. But a lot of times it's just the villain is evil, and then I feel like they focus more on getting each scene done, and that they focus more on, like, okay, we need a big action scene. We need one main song for the entire thing. We need
Mm-hmm.
a scene where they realize that they love each other and stuff like that, rather than actually thinking about, okay, let's actually develop this character and make it a lovable character.
Yeah, I feel like they prioritize having songs and entertainment rather than having actual story arc and character development, which I mean, I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing because obviously it's working. They have a lot of people that enjoy their type of movies. It's just interesting to see the contrast between the two types of productions.
Yeah, and also the fact that I feel like when we watch American movies, a lot of times people are like, oh, my favorite character was the villain because of this, and I feel like he's misunderstood. Or like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I think this. Or sometimes, I feel like it's really easy and it makes sense for a lot of American movies to be made into sequels and stuff. But in Indian movies, you kind of have to only love the hero, and you kind of
Yeah.
have to, it's kind of like the movie starts and it ends. There's no like backstories, there's no sequels and stuff like that.
Right. I think another difference that I kind of always see in movies is that in Indian movies, they always rely on religious aspects to kind of control the plot. Like what I'm saying is, in American movies, sure, they have some religion in like horror movies with exorcisms and stuff, but they don't bring up God every single time. In Indian movies, it's always, oh, God help me. Like if the hero, he's like in a fight scene and he's like about to die, then they somehow show God and they're like God is helping him. And I feel like maybe people who are not as religious might not relate to the story plot as much or be interested, you know what I'm saying? Because not everyone
That's
is
true.
religious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like personally, I'm religious, but I also agree that, like, you know, I would love to see religion implemented, but also it shouldn't be the main focus of the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like maybe they should also um talk about social and stuff like that, not just religious. That's driving the entire plot and story forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't honestly, I don't know that much about Indian movies and serials because being born and raised in America, I'm much more of a fan of American movies and stuff. So I might be a bit biased, and I haven't seen that many Indian movies. But yeah, honestly, I would say overall they're actually both pretty good. I
Mhm.
feel like I would probably opt for watching an English movie rather than an Indian one. But if my parents were like, "Oh, let's go to an Indian movie," I wouldn't be complaining.
Right. Yeah. I feel like the thing about Indian movies that I kind of like is I feel like the comedy, since you know that language, it's not foreign, I feel like I'm used to it because I grew up watching Indian movies. So even though some things bug me, like the sexism and how they always make they always have the damsel in
Yeah,
distress.
it's very cliche, and I would say more traditional.
Yeah, it's just I kind of like the humor, the way they phrase things, because I'm Telugu, and the movies I watch are Telugu, and the humor I'm used to it because it's in Telugu, and I feel like I wouldn't enjoy American movies as much because of that, because I'm more used
Yeah,
to
honestly,
Telugu.
I feel like with comedy, I would say Indian movies are probably better, or at
Yeah,
least like as good, because I don't know. I feel like Indians have a sense of humor. It's like they the thing is, like, you know how in America we have puns and stuff. Like in
yeah,
India we also have that sort of a thing where they have a play on specific Indian words or
mm,
phrases like
hmm,
that. And so
yeah,
it's more unique compared to America, but it's also really funny if you
yeah.
understand it.
I get more references in Indian movies because, like, sometimes I'm watching American movies and I don't get their references because I don't know what the actor they're referencing to or got the latest gossip because I don't really, catch up on American actors and stuff. So in Indian
Yeah, that's
movies,
true.
yeah, in Indian movies, I get the jokes more and it just makes it funnier. But I feel like their traditional mindset of always having the hero that saves the girl or something is it gets boring after watching
Yeah, because it's
movies.
always like the hero is usually a male, and
Mhm.
he's usually fighting for the female, you know, lover of his. And then there's always some sort of fight scene. So I feel
Yeah.
like for sure Indian movies could branch out, but
Mhm.
what they are right now is not bad. You know what I mean? It's pretty good.
Yeah. Dude, I just wanted to talk about this. Like when it's always the hero falls in love with the heroine, but she doesn't love her back. So they're trying to get her to love the
Yeah, they're
hero
trying to
back,
prove
right?
themselves.
But the things that the hero does sometimes, if someone did it in real life, they would get arrested. Like, hear me out. So the hero is basically stalking the heroine, okay? They always talk about how he was following her around for like a few months and just
Yeah,
looking at her. Yeah,
and then
like
he
if she
watched
doesn't,
her and saw what she did on a daily basis.
yeah, like
And
if
then
she
and
doesn't like
somehow it
you,
works out because usually she's involved in, like, I don't know, she's involved with some dangerous people or something, but I feel
yeah,
like, you know,
yeah, I feel
that
like
would be
it gives,
against the law probably.
right, like he,
She could file a restraining order in real life.
yeah, like I feel like it gives people in real life, they feel like it's okay to follow people around, because they think that they're gonna fall in love with them, but that's not how it works out in real life. Sometimes
Yeah.
the girl or boy or person doesn't actually like the other person, so it's just stalking and uncomfortable. So I feel like they
Yeah.
kind of romanticize stalking, which is just not okay in that.
Yeah, that's true. But also, it's like, for some reason, maybe it's because we're used to it, or maybe it's because we know it's a movie, but for some reason, it just makes sense. I feel like
Mhm.
that's true for a lot of, like, even in America and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff where if you really do think about it in real life, it would be really funny or really weird or really bad,
Yeah.
but it just makes sense in movies.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of more of a funny thing, but like, imagine, like, obviously we see people doing dances, and and the dances, like in India and Indian movies to Indian songs, they're really outgoing, bright colors, and, like, big dances. They kind of, move their entire bodies. And so I'm just imagining, like, being in a public place and dancing like that, except you have the song in your headphones or AirPods or something. And so you're just listening to the song and you think it's fine, but then everyone around you just sees you randomly dancing. That
Yeah,
would be so weird.
cause in the movies when the main character dances, somehow everyone around them knows the moves and they start,
Yeah, it's
uh,
really random. Like they come in, and then the main character kind of starts dancing, and we're like, okay. But then suddenly there's 10 backup dancers who know the moves, like, come, like, perfectly. And then
yeah,
they're just appearing out of nowhere and start dancing with
mhm.
him.
And they're in perfect synchronization. And in real life, it would be so weird
Yeah, like, I
because
can't imagine in real life I'm just walking down a street and then 10 people just show up perfectly in
yeah,
synchronization, just dancing.
like in real life, it'd probably be really awkward. There'd be like, what the heck is this person doing? And you're gonna get a lot of stares, not much
Yeah.
of a backup dancer type of thing.
Yeah, and also this is not, maybe this is just an Indian cultural thing, but I feel like when people go to movies and like in the theaters, obviously, they go to the cinema and then the movie starts playing, and then when the actor shows up for the first time, everyone in the theater just starts clapping and cheering and whistling, like when the
Yeah.
actor, meaning the protagonist, shows up. And then it's kind of like when you watch those shows that were filmed in front of a live studio audience or something, because it's like, you have the audience, because here in America people usually are really quiet in theaters and they don't really talk, that much, or they just whisper among themselves. But in India they're really loud, and it's kind of like it really is like like a live studio audience.
Yeah, for real. And you know how in Indian movies, when they first introduce the actor or the actress, they don't automatically show their face. They kind of build the suspense. Like they
Yeah,
cover
it's
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
heroine's face with flowers or something, and you have to wait like 5 minutes. And then
Yeah,
when
like
you
they first show like parts of their dress or their hand
yeah,
or their feet, and then they slowly like zoom out into the full face. And then for
mhm,
some reason it's kind of like a wedding, because there's a bunch of like bridesmaids or people surrounding the heroine, and then they have like flowers or something covering her face, and then they open it, and usually it's like an opening song, or they at least have some background music.
yeah,
So
like I remember I was in India once, and here in movie theaters, people don't have like that type of grand entrance. But I was in
yeah,
India once, and we were watching a movie, and they did that slow grand reveal for the actors and the actresses, and people like lost it. Like they were starting to cheer and clap and like whistle,
yeah,
and I wasn't used to it, and I wasn't, expecting that. So I kind of just jumped out of my seat because I was like, what's happening? And then I kind of got used to it. But yeah, it's
yeah.
it's kind of fun
I
to
mean, you would think it was like the actual actor who played in the movie was there in the theater, but no.
right? Yeah,
It's
and then
just
you just
it's just the
realize.
character in the movie.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to see that though, because here people are just
Yeah.
so
I
like
guess you could think of it as a culture shock, but it's
mhm.
it's pretty fun. Like
Yeah,
it's fun to cheer with them.
right.
Or
Yeah,
I feel like here it would be kind of normal or even just less awkward to cheer or clap at the end of a movie, because people are like, okay, they enjoyed the movie, and then people wouldn't look at you like that. But in India I feel like people would look at you weird if you clapped at the end instead of
hmm,
clapping like at the beginning when they first show up.
real, yeah. But yeah, I think that's what we have so far. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, looks like we've been going at it for a little bit, so I guess that's all we have time for today. We'll call it here, and guys, like, subscribe, do all the things. I know it was just us two for today, but we try to kind of get everyone, and we'll get Hershita and Bhavana and possibly more people later on if we can. And we just have to find time. We'll probably record more episodes in the summer. But yeah,
yeah.
like, subscribe, do all the things if you want to, and I guess we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.